Beauchamp House is set in Delhi in 1795, and this is a Delhi that's very different to the Delhi that most people know. We are shooting in Jaipur in Rajasthan for Delhi because it has so many magnificent buildings from the Mughal times, and that architecture really works well for Delhi 1795.
So we're in Jaigarh Fort, which is on the top of a hill. This was the military fort, which guards the borders. So if you look around, there'll be walls like the Great Wall of China running all around on the hills.
Right, I think I just need to do that once more on camera C, please.
We were just doing a wrestling scene, and we're doing it for real. If they keep any of the long shots, you see that Tom took all the hits.
This is one of the great palaces in India, fantastic location. It's quite hard to secure this location to shoot for a drama because there are many restrictions. Number one, you have to be very careful with lights. You're not allowed to bring lights in here. So it's very hard to get all the beautiful detail of the tiling and the artwork. But, you know, we've got enough light coming in to lift that. The benefit is that the production value is amazing, and it really feels like an emperor's palace.
We built and shot the interior set of Beauchamp House in Ealing Studios. It had to be the biggest studio we could get, so that we can get the biggest scale we can for the show.
Look at this, love this. Looks so real, doesn't it?
It had to be able to never get too boring and to be able to show dimension, depth of field, night and day, lattice work. It was an extreme amount to ask of a set in 6 or 8 weeks.
So what you could do is leave the set in Ealing and then just walk into here.
Absolutely right.
Walked onto here.
And to the right.
Yeah, but we've got to believe that her room is just here.
Yeah. We had to develop a journey, and that journey had to be complicated enough for you to follow through the camera geographically, cinematically, but also then arrive in India and coming out of a door or coming out of a corridor or coming out of an architectural feature.
They did such a marvellous job on the set at Ealing. They really constructed something that felt very much like we were in Rajasthan.
There are columns in the set in Ealing, and then when you come here, you see exactly the same architecture, exactly the same paintwork, and they're worlds apart, literally.
The interesting thing about 1795 is obviously it's pre-photographic. It's almost, in some ways, you wouldn't call it pre-painting, but it's pre-popular painting of the era in that country. So most of the paintings of the period in that country were not made by the people locally. So you had quite an eclectic mix of architectural features and artistic finishes. So therefore I could then move around and create my own world and originate and invent on top of a strong base.
A column is not just a column, a shrine is not just a shrine. Michael thinks in layers, layers of emotion, layers of activity, layers of history. He's managed to create something so authentic and absolutely stunning.
I think we put some dressing in the back there with some just lighter colour over things.
So with somewhere like India, with a heavy labour but not heavy cost in labour, you develop your design around what you can get done with a lot of people very quickly. They can do almost anything. They're enthusiastic and incredibly clever. It's not just like you need to find a specialist, they're all specialists, so they're all good at that sort of thing. So you can find a finish to anything with mostly all of them. And the biggest experience I had for this show was to really get onto imperialistic painters of the 19th century, because the colour that they evoked and their lushness and the otherworldly, exotic, seductive view of it all was stunning. And we've caught that. I think we've definitely caught it. It doesn't look like anything else on television. It looks rich and warm and inviting and relaxing. It looks like a piece of Indian cinema, and I think that's incredible.
I think the most exciting element of this show is how diverse our cast is and how diverse a story we're telling. There are some amazing British Asian actors and some Bollywood actors as well.
Gurinder has a lot of clarity about the characters, but at the same time she wants us to be involved in developing them. Chanchal essentially is a nursemaid. She is the caretaker of baby August, who according to me is the star of the show. But she's this young, ambitious girl who wants to, explore the world, and she's very adventurous, but at the same time she has responsibilities and she's learning a lot about life. Gurinder describes her as saucy and haughty, which I think is a good combination. So she has various shades to her personality that we see throughout the show, but she's a very lovable character.
I'm a dancer, which is really helpful when I play characters like this, because being a classical Indian dancer, there are certain mannerisms that you adopt, and there is storytelling which comes from Hindu mythology, and often that mythology speaks of the gods, the goddesses, kings and queens. So I think I have an added advantage in that I've trained to move my body in certain ways to tell these very, very Indian stories. So for me, Chandrika is just an extension of that, just inhabiting the space, the costume, and reining my movements in to make them a little bit more feminine and regal.
I'm also the historical consultant on the show, which involved looking at all aspects of lifestyle and making sure that it was authentic at the time. And that, of course, included little details like how the servants have behaved with each other, their behavior to their employers, how people greeted each other, the different forms of greeting, how formal it would be with certain people and less so with others.
We've had some etiquette lessons to learn the correct way that Indians would eat their curries and their naans, and then making a decision as to how much my character would embrace Indian culture. It's been fun to explore that, and that gives rules to the whole dynamic of being in Beecham House, and that's always interesting to play with.
Lots of things get directors excited, but this is what gets me excited. 1, 2, 3 cameramen, 3 cameras on a scene. That's what gets the director excited. Turn over. Yes.
Many of the Delhi characters in this series are invented by Paul and Gurinder. But it's based quite closely on historical circumstances and on real characters. And as the historical advisor, I've been very impressed by particularly the detail paid to costume, for example. They've been really researching the dress of the period and the different ways that say, the Muslims are dressed and the Hindus are dressed.
Joanna Eatwell is my costume designer, and she is a self-confessed control freak when it comes to costume. She goes into so much detail. She knows much more than me about Indian costumes, and she will forever talk about bits of costumes in sort of Hindi words, and I have no idea what she's talking about. But that's what it takes. What is a period drama? A period drama suddenly comes alive when actors are dressed appropriately.
My costumes are incredible. Interestingly, most of them were made in the UK. Beautiful ladies from the costume department went out to Southall, sourced fabrics, did a lot of research on what women wore at that time, and they've just got it 100% right.
I love the colors, and just the palette is very beautiful. In fact, a lot of people who've been seeing the stills have complimented how authentic it is, and it just looks rich and visually breathtaking.
We got to India and it just got turned up a notch because apparently this wasn't heavy enough, and so my heaviest skirt, I think, is about 15 kilograms. It cuts into me. I'm doing my job. No one has any idea what I'm going through, like underneath all those layers of silk. But I love dressing up, and I've always loved Indian clothes. I feel, glorious when I wear them.
How can anyone get any work done with these two?
As always, when they have babies or small children in dramas, they often get twins if they can, because one may not be feeling like doing it on one day. So they have the cutest pair of babies, and they're actually girls. But they are unbelievably cute. You won't be able to take your eyes off these kids. They're gorgeous and they're so sweet. And I actually seem to like it all very much.
Straight to here, everyone. Ignore the baby. That's it. Really strong faces.
Beecham House is a real tribute to an India that we don't get to see. And for me, at a political level, at a cultural level, it's fantastic to see India in this light. I think it takes a woman like Gurinder, who knows what it is to be perhaps othered, living a diasporic life her entire life, first from India to Africa and then to the UK, to bring those narratives together. If you see the relationships that Indians have all over the world, in the countries that they've settled, it's always very complex and very diverse. And I think that's represented really beautifully in this upstairs-downstairs story.